What if I told you that one of the most advanced forms of personal protection isn't actually solid at all? That the secret to stopping a speeding bullet could be hiding inside a liquid? I know, it sounds wild. Okay, let's get into it.
It really does sound like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But this is a question that scientists and engineers are taking very seriously. So today, we're going to break down the absolutely incredible science behind so-called liquid armor.
So to even begin to understand how any of this is possible, we have to start not in some high-tech laboratory, but, well, in the kitchen, with a really, really strange fluid.
You've probably seen this stuff. It's called Oobleck. It's just cornstarch and water. And if you move your hand through it slowly, it feels kind of like a thick liquid. But if you try to punch it or move quickly, bam! It instantly becomes hard as a rock. This one bizarre property is the key to this entire story.
And it's not just a fun little science experiment for kids. This exact thought has occurred to lots of people, like Reddit user Jorach123, who asked, "Hey, could you use these things to make bulletproof vests?" It's a fantastic question, and it turns out the answer is way more complex and fascinating than you might think.
So what is actually happening inside that weird mixture of cornstarch and water? Let's peel back the curtain and get into the science of these amazing smart fluids.
Okay, so most fluids like water, are what we call Newtonian. Their viscosity, which is just a fancy word for their resistance to flow, is always constant. But non-Newtonian fluids, they're the rebels. Their viscosity actually changes under stress. Some, like ketchup, get thinner when you shake them, but others, like our Oobleck, do the exact opposite. They get thicker.
This behavior has a name. It's called shear thickening, and the official term for a liquid like this is a shear thickening fluid, or STF for short. When you apply a sudden force or shear stress, its viscosity just skyrockets, and for a split second it behaves just like a solid.
So why? Why does this happen? Well, scientists have two main theories. The first is something called an order-to-disorder transition, where neatly layered particles get all jumbled up and suddenly resist flowing. But the second one, and the one that's more widely accepted for high-speed impacts, is called hydroclustering. Let me make this super simple. Imagine all the tiny particles floating in the fluid are like cars on a busy highway. Normally, they just flow right past each other, no problem. But a sudden impact, say from a bullet, is like every single car slamming on their brakes at the exact same time. The particles instantly jam together, creating these temporary solid-like clusters. It's basically a microscopic traffic jam that stops the impact in its tracks.
Okay, so we've got the basic science down, but how in the world do we get from a simple bowl of cornstarch goop to something you can actually use in real body armor? Let's bridge that gap.
First things first, let's clear up a common misconception. The name liquid armor is a little misleading. We're not talking about a vest that's just a big bag of goo. No. Instead, it's a composite material where a super high-strength fabric, like Kevlar, is soaked in a specially designed shear thickening fluid. The process is actually pretty straightforward. You start with a tough fabric like Kevlar. Then you whip up an advanced STF. But instead of cornstarch, you use these microscopic silica nanoparticles suspended in a liquid carrier, something like polyethylene glycol. Finally, you just soak the fabric with this fluid so it gets into all the tiny gaps between the fibers.
And why go to all this trouble? Well, the number one advantage is mobility. Traditional soft armor needs a ton of fabric layers to be effective, which makes it heavy and stiff and uncomfortable. But by adding the STF, you can get the same or even better protection with fewer layers. And that means the armor is lighter and way more flexible.
This all sounds fantastic in theory, right? But the million-dollar question is, does it actually work? Let's look at the evidence and maybe address some of the skepticism out there.
A common point that gets brought up online, like in that same Reddit thread, is that the Mythbusters already tested this idea. And as one commenter correctly pointed out, their test failed. It did not stop a bullet. But, and this is a huge but, there's a critical distinction to be made here. They used big bags of simple Oobleck. Real liquid armor technology uses those advanced silicon nanoparticles in a specialized fluid. This isn't just a stronger version of Oobleck. The fundamental physics of how the energy gets absorbed and distributed is way more effective at that tiny particle level. It's a completely different ballgame.
You see, to properly judge any kind of armor, we have to look at the official standards. The National Institute of Justice, or NIJ, has a whole rating system. Soft armor, the flexible kind, usually falls into levels VAA, 2, and 2A, which are designed to stop various handgun rounds. Anything higher than that usually requires hard ceramic or metal plates to stop rifle fire. So, what does the professional peer-reviewed research say? Well, a ton of work has been done on this, especially by the U.S. Army Research Lab and the University of Delaware, going all the way back to 2002. And their findings have consistently shown that treating fabrics like Kevlar with an STF makes them significantly better at resisting both bullets and stabbing attacks.
Now check this out. This chart shows some of the hard data from one of these studies. It's a direct comparison. The STF-treated panel absorbed around 40% more energy than the standard fabric panel. That is a huge difference. This just brilliantly illustrates the core benefit. The STF helps the fabric spread out and absorb the bullet's energy over a much wider area, way more effectively.
And get this isn't just lab research anymore. This technology is out in the real world. Companies like D3O have commercialized it. You can find this stuff today in everything from motorcycle jackets and ski gear to phone cases and even military equipment. The material stays soft and flexible when you're just moving around, but the moment there's an impact, it instantly hardens to protect you.
So, we've gone all the way from a kitchen curiosity to a real-world, life-saving technology. But where is all of this heading? Let's take a quick look at the future.
Now, there are still some challenges to figure out, like making sure the fluid doesn't settle over time because of gravity. But the potential applications are just massive. Beyond body armor, people are exploring this tech for smarter traction control in cars and even for a genius way to fill potholes. Imagine a fluid that flows into the crack and then instantly hardens under the pressure of traffic. How cool is that? It's really an amazing journey, isn't it? From a simple mix of cornstarch and water to a material that can save lives. It really makes you wonder, what other incredible, impossible technologies are out there right now, just hiding in the most ordinary of places, waiting to be discovered?